But here I have this nagging curiosity about taxes. The government generates revenues, of your taxing the public. But then I realize that when the economy is not robust and people are not earning, or even the spending availability of cash, or we call liquid income or disposable income, appears to shrink consistently over time, one wonders whether the government can actually be dependent on tax as they are when people are not earning as much. Now, if the math is anything to go by, the supposition is that if the economies are not doing well, if people are not earning, or people are even out of jobs or underemployed, then tax is not going to be what it should be in an economy that's not developing at the presumed rate. So what would your opinion on that be?
That's a brilliant question. And, it reminds me of a World Bank research. I think Stairs posted it recently. It's been out there since about December of 2020, so about 3 years now. Mm-hmm. They carried out a research on spending patterns within Nigeria. I always like to look at spending whenever we talk of taxes. That report says only 3.7 million Nigerians, again, let's hold it constant, that were 200 million. Mm-hmm. Only 3.7 million Nigerians can spend anything around 150,000 naira and above per month. 3.7 million people can spend anything above 150K per month out of the 200 million. Damning statistics. And then that report, and it's a full report, so people can go online and check it. That report also says that about 133 million, we would have seen that, Nigerians are living in multi-dimensional poverty. So, if a good 60% of your population is living in multi-dimensional poverty, how in God's name are you looking to use taxes as a way out of it? So that's why I said that question is a brilliant question. What would be my sort of solution to this? If you look at Nigeria, we're made up of 6 regions. Each region to me is like a country. Now, that's the first thing. You look at Nigeria like 6 regions. Mm-hmm. What's the second thing? Sometime in 2013, Nigeria prepared a document called the National Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan. That plan was updated in 2022, last year. And what's this plan about? Whenever I hear taxes, someone always tells me, the more productive you are, the more you can tax as a nation. That National Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan took that adoption and said, look, Nigeria, you need to be productive. Therefore, you need to work across your infrastructure. Let me mention the infrastructure classes: energy, transport, agriculture, water and mining, ICT, housing and regional development, social infrastructure, vital registration and security. As a country, those 7 categories should be our top priority. Which is why when you see a lot of people complain that, we don't have power, we can't do this, very correct. I have a client, who is into plastic manufacturing. The guy is on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway here. And the last time I visited him, about a month ago, this chap was telling me that if only he could solve his power conundrum. His power is currently taking about 60% of his cost of goods sold. 60%. And he told me that if he can solve that power conundrum, his total output can increase by as much as 6-fold. What that means is that he can ideally pay more taxes. He can ideally hire more people. He can ideally contribute more GDP into our overall GDP. So the point is this: until the government decides to find a way to prioritize infrastructure development, there is no way that taxes will be the thing to lift us out of our poverty. There's just no way. That's why when you see a lot of Nigerians, when they leave the country and they go to other places, they're very successful. Let me tell you why. There's something they call the infrastructure stock. So this various infrastructure I've mentioned, if you add the total cost of that infrastructure and you compare it to our GDP, so infrastructure stock to GDP ratio, currently, Nigeria sits around 30%. It is extremely poor. No country in the world produces anything meaningful when your infrastructure stock to your GDP ratio is poor. What we need is to improve that infrastructure stock to GDP ratio. Now, let me tell you why we're very successful when we go anywhere else. Take, for instance, China, the production capital of the world. Infrastructure stock to GDP ratio in China is in its 90s in terms of percentage. Every single country in the world where they produce, where they're able to rely on their taxes, Europe, US, Asia, all of them rely on the infrastructure stock to GDP ratio. And if you look at Nigeria, we're not ready. We're just not ready. So I've always said, each time I look at the budget, and I've looked at the 3-year budget, by the way, 27 trillion projected in this 1 trillion naira, about 27 trillion again projected in 2025, another, I think, about 28 or 29 trillion projected in the following year. In the next 3 years, if they hold those numbers constant, because I follow the numbers, it is what I've referred to as a budget of coasting along. There is no way that this budget, in the way it is constituted, they may change it tomorrow. There is no way that this budget will be the thing to move Nigerians away from our current poverty. There is no way that will make us build the required human capital or industrial capacity or improve exports. No. So the way it's currently constituted, let's just coast along. Let's just carry on with what it is. But the problem with it is that the quality of life will continue to diminish, in this so-called let's just coast along mentality. And that's what that budget speaks to, which is why if you look at the overall budget number relative to our GDP, so again, if you look at the total income in the budget and you compare it to our GDP, it is 9%. Extremely low for anything developmental. It's just too low. Even the IMF recently said it, I think yesterday or something. So once you look at all of those things, let's just know that as Nigerians, we just want to coast along. The roads will continue to manage it. The power will continue to manage it. Water, mining, agriculture will continue to manage it. For me, that's why I said, for me, I pray and I hope that 12% that has been put in security is fully implemented, so that at least we can have a lot more food. And then obviously those producing food, they can also pay more taxes. Until we're able to match and marry the two, the ability to generate taxes will remain below average, unfortunately.
It does quite appear that an element of financing our budgets is through grants. I'm not sure I've ever heard that before. And if possible, how possible is it that an avenue by which we can finance our budgets is through grants, like getting monies from... But I don't know whether I'm concerned that we're looking at the climate fund as a means to get money into the economy, or whether this is just novel in itself, that it's altogether intriguing. What do you have to say about looking at the climate financing to finance our budget?
Joyce, I'm as worried as you are. That tells you something, that everything we said here this afternoon is true. The ability for the current government to generate any sort of revenue is currently challenged. Therefore, now I have to go cap in hand. Maybe that's why they took 422 or so people with them to COP, according to them in terms of the numbers. And not, maybe that's why they went there full force. This is the only reasonable thinking behind it. We're stranded. We need monies from the lowest hanging fruit. That is it. That's what they're trying to do. Just trying to look for money any which way. I have a better solution that I've always talked about. If you look at our remittances, so remittances, monies that Nigeria is sending, through all sorts of means, to people here and stuff like that. Our remittances between 2016 and 2019, 2016, 17, 18, and 19, those 4 years, our total remittances were 68 billion US dollars. Just monies from Nigerians across the world sending money in, take, nothing structured. Now, imagine if we had a government that could appeal to those in diaspora and say, guys, look, we need to build this infrastructure across this geozone, this geozone, this geozone, this geozone. This infrastructure will help us do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things. And our development will be able to move from point A to point B to point C to point D. They create a sort of master plan in that kind of manner. Why can't they do it? It's very simple. They can't do it because, the trust and confidence that Nigerians in diaspora have in the current government is low. That is the only stumbling block there. But they have to find a way.
All right.